Imagine someone came to you and said, half of America, the world's greatest superpower, was actually bought with just the spare change in a pocket. No massive army, no bloody war. Without spending a single bullet, with just a simple table and the stroke of 2 pens, the map of the world changed overnight. Why did Napoleon Bonaparte, history's most terrifying French dictator who crushed all of Europe under his boots, sell his dream empire to America's President Thomas Jefferson for just a few cents, almost like giving alms? If this treaty hadn't happened that day, today's superpower America wouldn't even exist. America might have been divided into 4 or 5 separate countries today. But how did a mosquito, a group of rebel Haitian slaves, and a secret treaty change America's fate overnight? In the next 15 minutes, you are going to witness the largest, most mysterious, and most cunning real estate deal in human history. The birth of today's familiar America did not happen on any battlefield in Washington or Philadelphia. Its real design was created in a dark drawing room in Paris, where a group of diplomats was playing the biggest gamble. In the early 1800s, America was a young, weak country, surrounded by enemies on all sides. To their west was a vast and mysterious unknown world, controlled by European superpowers. The only lifeline for American survival was the Mississippi River and the port of New Orleans.
Closing this route meant the economic death of America.
And at that very moment, French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, who made Europe tremble, stood right at America's doorstep with a terrifying plan. Just as America's independence was in a deep existential crisis, the greatest turning point in history occurred. A diplomatic game of chess began, changing the fate of America forever. In the late 18th century, America was not as vast as it is today, stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Back then, America's border ended at the banks of the Mississippi River. On the other side of the river lay a completely different world. The vast lands of Native Americans and colonies of European powers.
For thousands of American farmers living in the wild Western Territory, the Mississippi River was their lifeline.
Their crops would float down this river to the port of New Orleans, and from there, ships would load them to be sent to different corners of the world. New Orleans was the lungs of the American economy. But the control of these lungs was not in America's hands. It was under Spain. The Spanish were relatively weak, so Americans were somehow able to keep their trade going. But in 1801, secret news reached Washington that chilled the blood of America's president, Thomas Jefferson. Spain had secretly signed a treaty transferring control of the entire massive region of Louisiana, including New Orleans, to France. Who was in power in France back then? Napoleon Bonaparte, a military genius with an insatiable hunger and a dream to conquer the whole world. Jefferson realized that if France closed the gates of New Orleans, the American economy would collapse like a house of cards. America would never be able to survive as an independent nation. Jefferson wrote in his diary, "The day France takes possession of New Orleans, our destiny changes. We must marry ourselves to the British fleet and nation and rely on the ocean for our safety." The situation got even worse in 1802, when the Spanish governor suddenly banned Americans from entering the port of New Orleans.
The anger of American farmers was at its peak. The drums of war began to beat across the country.
America was faced with 2 choices: either enter a suicidal war against France, or find a diplomatic solution that seemed almost impossible.
President Jefferson wanted to avoid war. He instructed Robert Livingston, the American minister in Paris, to negotiate with the French government.
Jefferson sent his close ally, James Monroe, to Paris as an extra envoy. Their objective was clear and limited: buy New Orleans and a small amount of surrounding land at any cost. The maximum budget was $10 million. But they did not know that across the Atlantic, Napoleon Bonaparte was suffering from a completely different crisis.
Napoleon's original plan was to build a massive French empire in North America, with Louisiana serving as the granary of that empire. But to keep this granary running, Napoleon needed a strong base in Saint-Domingue, modern-day Haiti, in the Caribbean.
Haiti was a massive source of sugar and France's most profitable colony. But an unprecedented event had occurred there. Led by a visionary slave named Toussaint Louverture, Haiti's black slaves declared the most successful rebellion in history, throwing off French rule to declare themselves free. Napoleon took this as a blow to his pride. He sent tens of thousands of experienced French troops under his brother-in-law, General Leclerc, to conquer Haiti. Napoleon thought it would be an easy victory, but Haiti turned into a living hell for the French soldiers. The guerrilla attacks of the Haitian fighters, and even more terrifyingly, yellow fever, destroyed the French army. Within just a few months, nearly 50,000 French soldiers died on the island. Seeing the screams of dying French soldiers in hospitals and piles of corpses, Napoleon realized his dream of an American empire was over before it even began. Without Haiti, Louisiana was impossible to defend. At the same time, the clouds of a new war between France and Britain were gathering in Europe. Napoleon needed a massive amount of money, and he did not want this vast territory of Louisiana to fall into British hands. Lying in his bathtub in Paris, Napoleon made a dramatic decision. He called his finance minister, Barbé Marbois, and said, "I will cede the whole of Louisiana to the Americans. I need money, and I cannot defend this vast land from Britain." April 12, 1803, James Monroe had just arrived in Paris. He and Livingston were still thinking about how to convince the French to sell just the port of New Orleans. Suddenly, French finance minister Barbe Marbois came to the American envoys with an offer that made them unable to believe their ears.
The French minister asked Livingston, "Why are you only looking for New Orleans? If we give you the entire Louisiana Territory, how much are you willing to pay?"
Livingston and Monroe were stunned. They had come to buy a small port city, and the French were offering to sell them a territory the size of an entire continent, stretching from the Gulf of Mexico to the border of modern Canada. The American envoys had no official permission or instruction from Washington to buy this massive land. Jefferson had only given them a limit of $10 million for New Orleans, but they knew that if they let this opportunity go, history would never forgive them. Napoleon could change his mind at any moment. Tense negotiations began. The French initially asked for an unrealistic price, but finally, on April 30th, 1803, both sides reached a final agreement. The price was set at $15 million. Adjusted for inflation today, this amount is around $350 million. But even back then, it was the cheapest real estate deal in history, costing only about 4 cents per acre. After signing the treaty, Livingston looked at Monroe and whispered, "We have lived long, but this is the noblest work of our whole lives." When the news of the treaty reached Washington, President Thomas Jefferson was both overjoyed and thrown into a deep constitutional dilemma. Jefferson was a strict supporter of the Constitution. He believed that what is not explicitly written in the Constitution, the president cannot do. And nowhere in the U.S. Constitution did it say that a president could purchase new land from another country. His political opponents, especially the Federalists, began to fiercely oppose the treaty, arguing that this vast, wild territory would ruin America's political balance and tear the Union apart. Moreover, the boundaries of the treaty were so vague that nobody knew where Louisiana's borders actually ended.
But Jefferson realized this was a God-given opportunity for America. He set aside his constitutional doubts, and in October 1803, the U.S. Senate approved the treaty by a landslide vote.
December 20th, 1803, in front of the Cabildo building in New Orleans, the French flag was lowered, and America's red, white, and blue star-spangled flag was raised. In an instant, America's border expanded beyond the Mississippi River to the foothills of the Rocky Mountains.
Overnight, the size of America doubled. The birth of today's major cities like Denver, Chicago, New Orleans, and Kansas City was secured through this very treaty.
After the Louisiana Purchase, Jefferson launched a new expedition, sending Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to explore this unknown territory.
Their Lewis and Clark expedition gave birth to a new dream in the minds of American people, which later became known as Manifest Destiny, the divine right of America to stretch from ocean to ocean. But behind this great achievement lay a dark truth. The Louisiana that America bought was not empty land. Hundreds of thousands of Native Americans had lived there for thousands of years. France had sold ownership of land that they did not even rightfully possess. In the following decades, the arrival of American settlers led to the brutal forced displacement of these Native Americans from their own lands, destroying their culture and way of life. At the same time, the conflict over whether slavery would be allowed in these new territories paved the way for the bloody American Civil War of 1861. Still, the Louisiana Purchase remains one of the most important events in human history. Without it, the United States we know today would never have been formed. North America might have turned into small, divided, warring states, much like Europe. That single decision by Napoleon, the heroic resistance of the Haitian slaves, and the courage of Jefferson all came together to give birth to the history we know today as the modern world. History is never truly lost. It hides in every line and border of the map. How did you like this wonderful history? Do you think Jefferson was right to buy this land despite violating the Constitution? Let us know in the comments. To hear more exciting and untold stories of history, subscribe to the channel and stay with us. See you in the next